This video is to show you a way to bind spiral communication books so that they are transportable with a strap. First thing I'll do is show you some of the things you'll need to put the process together. So we've got scissors, we've got these 4 cable ties. They can be sort of any size width. We've got these cable ties. These are 3.5 millimeter width, and they have to be that size to go within the spirals. I'll show you what that means in a bit. Then we've got, and there's about 18 of those. So 4 of these, 18 of these. Got M3 Nylock locking nut. I'll show a picture of that. But yeah, that goes on the end of the spiral. We need 2 of those. Then we've got a 5.5 socket that goes on the nut. And then we've got our side cutters and our needle nose pliers. And of course we've got our strap to transport. Right, so the first thing we'll need to do is put these wider straps on. And like I said, these can be of any size. I would we'll put in 9 spaces in. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 9. Put that on one side. And then draw this tight, but not too tight. We want to leave enough room to get in these the second set of cable ties. So probably want to stop right about there before we get any tighter and put the cable ties on. And these are the 3.5 millimeters. I've chosen that size because they just fit inside the spirals. Anything wider than that won't fit in there. So for this, our spiral setup, that's the width you need of cable ties to fit between the spirals. And I do 9. It just seems to be the right width. Oops. Made a little mistake there, so I'm gonna cut that. Make sure I get them in the spirals, so always important to have extras. And we'll do the same thing on both sides, so we won't need to show that bit. I like to leave them loose and then tighten them up. Kind of everything snugs together at one time. Oh, that's popped out of there. So we just want to make sure we get that last loop right in there. Okay, then we snug these down a bit. So tugging everything up, just snugging it all together at one time. Okay, and that's where the pliers come in. Give them a good tug. Holding them down at the bottom, pinching that bit and then pulling up. And just as tight as you can. Without going overboard, obviously, but you know, it's got to be nice and snug. And then pulling this. So this is usually pretty tight at this point, just to make sure. You can see that's bitten over, so that's good. Okay, now time to cut them. You can either use side cutters or you can use scissors to do this bit. These cable ties, when they're cut like this, still a bit rough. You can run over a bit of brick. That'll dull them down. Or I've also got a file that I use. I can bring that in and show you what I mean with that. But it just it can be a bit sharp at the end, so. It's taking a little time, so I'm going to use these scissors. I'm switching to scissors. Yeah, much faster. But you don't want to leave much left over because it can be sharp and you have to file it down anyhow. Okay, the last bit before this pulls out of here is putting a lock nut on here. So I'm going to start that. Thread's there. Sometimes I have to file this off if it's or cut it at a side at an angle to get it thin, but these come that way. They're already filed down or cut down to a side. But if that makes sense, you can see that it's sort of yeah, it's got a way to start the lock nut on there. So again, this is a M3 nut with a nylon insert that stops this from this nut from coming off. Once you get it on a little ways, then you use a 5.5. You can see that 5.5 socket is the right size to tighten this up. And that nut is just on there to stop this from unspiraling, basically, so it doesn't come off, and yeah, holds it tight. You can kink these around, but they can break too. These nuts seem to do a little better job holding them in place. Okay, and then the last thing, we cut that down, and then file this off, and then the last thing we do is clip these on. Now, if I've got one that doesn't fit because it's too tight, if this isn't big enough, this is a good example of it. What I'll do is I'll cut one of these out. So I'll try that now. There we go. And then slide the clip in there now. There we go. Great. And that is how you do one side. I'll do the other side and show you the finished product. All right, so I've done the other side. Now all that's left to do is to file it down. Like I said, it's just a little bit sharp, a little bit rough on the edges. That's why it's really important to get it cut really close to where these lock together, so you don't have as much to file. But you can do that. If I had this strap off here, I might run it against a wall of bricks. That can dull it down too. Just something to get the edge off a little bit. It feels nicer that way. But that's all really. I'll probably do a little better job later, but that's dulled down pretty good. Couple quick notes. I like using the Tic Tac to hold these M3 nuts together. Really good. It seems like once you open up the bag, they go everywhere, so that's a really nice way of storing those. For straps, we do use any kind of strap we can get, computer bags or purses, but we gotta make sure that they're narrow enough, so this one's too wide to go through the spirals once you lock it down. So straps are important. One more note on straps. So that's a bit narrow as the strap goes and probably would bite into the neck a little bit for someone who is displaying this communication book for someone who is eye pointing to the yes and no. So we would get a seat belt cover that you see parents use with children to sort of pad out that strap. It's a Velcro kind of wrap that goes around this. Something that would pad it out to make it a little bit nicer to have around the neck, because we expect that to be around the neck quite a bit as you're communicating with someone using this book. All right, so I hope you like that. Have any questions or comments, please leave them below. Thanks, bye. Right, so I just realized I hadn't showed the finished product. This is how it would look. I don't have the cushioned seatbelt strap, but this is how it would look, clipped on there, and then we would display the books like so, say, and when we turn to the page, it'd be displayed like this, so the book doesn't flip over, it just goes up against the chest. But yeah, that's how it holds it in place, and then put it back down when we're done, and put it in some place where it can be carried and available to the person who needs to use it. I should say just one more thing. I mean, this is one method. Nothing's perfect. Eventually they all wear out. But I'm really interested to hear if anybody else has better ways of attaching a strap to these books to make them transportable. This is one way, but it's not, by no means, this has been an evolution and it'll probably evolve even more. So if you have any ideas, please leave them below as well.